What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Mumu link that's down below or use this QR code to sign up. If you sign up for Mumu and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvda stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvda plus a $100 cash reward. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth of Nvidia plus $100, or deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia stock plus a $100 cash reward. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon, so please check out my links down below to get those free Nvidia shares. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the overall market. So I just wanted to mention that as far as the market's going, the daily time frame on SPY is showing some weakness. There's obviously this gap over here all the way down to 657 and more gaps below. Are we about to see the gaps get filled, or is SPY going to continue to rally? It depends on FOMC. Now, the daily has some weakness, then the 4 hour also has that rising wedge. But for now, we might actually kind of like chop around a little bit first before we see a big reaction. So you just want to keep that in mind, especially as time goes on. Now, on the economic calendar, keep in mind that we have the interest rate decision coming out at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so expect some volatility then. And then at 2 p.m., we also have the FOMC economic projections coming out. They'll tell us what interest rates are expected to be 1 year, 2 year, and 3 years out. Then we have the press conference with Jerome Powell, which is going to be very impactful. During the press conference, Jerome Powell is going to give a speech, and then he's going to be answering a lot of questions during the Q&A session. So that's going to likely lead to some volatility. We'll see what Jerome Powell tells us what his tonality looks like. Keep in mind, there's a 94% chance now that we get a 25 basis point cut and a 6% chance we get a 50 basis point cut. So we'll see what that leads to. For now, we're going to most likely see 25 basis points. And like I said yesterday, our Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that a 25 basis point interest rate cut is already priced in by markets, adding that the market's pricing in 75 basis points between now and the end of the year. So that's some important news. Besides that, there's nothing else that's too significant coming out. This is what the earnings calendar looks like, by the way. There's not really much that's too significant. We just have like General Mills and like FedEx in the upcoming days. And then besides that, like I said before, there's not really much else that's going on that I'm looking at. Just the same news we talked about yesterday, and pretty much that's it for now. So that being said, let's talk about the markets. What typically happens approaching FOMC is that we end up seeing a lot of like consolidation approaching the meeting. So we might push to the low 660s. If we break 662, we're bullish. And if Jerome Powell causes a big pump, you want to see 662 break. But if we lose 658, we're looking for a big move down. We could push a little bit higher for the low 660s and then consolidate, but then we're either going to see a big launch or a dump after FOMC. The setup favors downside looking at the rising wedge on SPY, but we'll see just to be safe, okay? The best thing to do is just to be very unbiased on a day like this because, you know, it's FOMC day. You never know what's going to happen, and that's why you want to be very careful. Manage risks accordingly, and we'll see what happens. Even though the daily is showing some weakness, depends on what Jerome Powell says. Will he cause the market to pump or dump? We'll have to wait and see. On the QQQ, the same thing is essentially going on. When you look at the QQQ, it could be going either way. If we break past 594, we're looking for an attempt for 600. If Jerome Powell launches the market higher, that could happen. But if we get a rug pull and we end up failing at 590, we're looking for essentially 587. If that fails us, we're going to be dumping to 582. Now, on SPY and the QQQ, we both of them basically have these rising wedges, which is why you want to be very careful in case this does start to dip. The rising wedge does favor downside, but of course it depends on our data. So be very, very unbiased with that, and we'll see what happens. The daily is also showing some weakness. This does typically favor downside, especially as we have this big gap to fill at 586, and then we have even more gaps below. So we'll see how that ends up going. The IWM, very indecisive. We're stuck between 238 is our supports and 240 is our resistance. So we're going to see which way we end up breaking. We could try to push a little bit higher. The 240 dip back down, just kind of consolidate like this. And we'll see if we break higher or lower depending on our numbers. Will we see a top right here forming? We could try to get close to 240. Then we'll see if it rejects. ES is trying to hold support right here at 6660. If we hold this, we could bounce a little bit, but we need to lose that to start dipping to 66.26 or below. Look for some temporary upside for 66.80, then we'll see if we get a rejection or not. This could be a lower high that's being made here, so will we get a big rejection? Do we bounce higher? So be very, very careful nonetheless. I do anticipate a small bounce though for 66.80 and some consolidation. Then we'll see if you reject or not, depending on FOMC. NQ is also trying to bounce. We're trying to hold 24,450. We could retest 24,600 if this continues. Consolidate. Then we'll see if we break up or down depending on Jerome Powell. Of course, the downside risk is still there with the bearish divergences, so we'll see just to be safe. On Bitcoin, we're dipping to about 115,946. We'll see if we bounce. If not, we could be dipping to 114,000 flat. I expect some consolidation. Tesla, on the other hand, is showing some weakness. If you look at the chart, we have like a lower high rejection. We need to hold above 425 and break out with Jerome Powell. If we don't, there's going to be a risk of Tesla dipping to 410. If that doesn't hold, we're looking for 402. And we might just consolidate for some time. So you want to be very, very careful nonetheless in case we do see some downside. Nvda is on a bit of a downtrend. Unless we get back above 174, we're going to be favoring 170 flat. We'll see if we bounce or not. If not, we could be dipping even lower. So be prepared for some temporary downside. That could also slow down the Qs. Appl might be looking for a 240 retest. We'll see if that breaks. If not, we could be turning back down to about 238 again. So look for 240. We might consolidate and we'll see if we could break out of the 240s or if it's the direct opposite and we turn back down. It depends on these external factors. For a few more, we have AMD. AMD at a high here came down at a lower high. Unless we hold above 160, we're going to be favoring a move back down to 155. Coinbase is also forming a bearish divergence. Watch 323. If it doesn't hold, we could be dipping back down to like 319. Look for some temporary downside nonetheless. Amazon might be also retesting 232, and we'll see if we bounce. Otherwise, downside risk is there. Meta has 780's resistance and support down here at 775. We could be dipping to 775 if we can't hold above 780. So look for a test of 780 and we'll see if we could break that. If Google breaks 255, we're bullish. But if we lose 250, we turn back down. I anticipate it might be retesting the high 255 and we'll see if it rejects. Microsoft may also bounce for essentially 513, and we're going to see if we can make a new high above 516, or do we just kind of like push a bit and then make a lower high? We'll see about that. The VIX is dipping a bit. Could this be a sign that the market's going to see a little bit of upside? It could, but then we're going to see if the VIX breaks out later thanks to Jerome Powell. It all depends on these external factors, so be very, very patient. The 10-year is dipping as a result, and the VIX could be on the verge of a breakout depending on if we continue to bounce or not. Might dip first, and then we'll see if we bounce. The market might see a little bit of upside when we open and then some consolidation, in my opinion. But for the most part, I just think there's going to be a lot of sideways choppy price action approaching FOMC. There are rising wedges on SPY and the QQQ, so the downside risk is there, but then we'll see what happens at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we have the new rate decision coming out. So be ready for that. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.